up? Mishelly Loves Books. Welcome back to my channel. I have another Midnight Sun video for you. This is the Midnight Sun book tag created by Nicole at Nicole Reads. I will leave her channel linked below, and as a shout out to her, thank you so much for tagging me in this video. It's been awesome getting to know you and awesome to know another big Twilight fan to share the love with. The first question is, what format did you read this book in? I read the physical book. My husband surprised me and ordered it like a month earlier. When we heard that you could pre-order this book and that it was coming out, I actually hesitated and told him not to pre-order it because I just did not know. I was really nervous about this book. I hated the cover. I thought, well, maybe I'll just rent it from the library and read it, and then if it's good, then I can maybe buy it, or I'll wait for another edition to come out when it has a prettier cover. But I'm so thankful that he went ahead and bought the book for me. I will cherish it always. And it matches all my other editions. So question number 2, what is your least and your favorite character before reading Midnight Sun? Before reading this book, I would say actually, it's kind of hard to say who my least favorite character is, because while there are characters like Mike, who is just so annoying, and Lauren, who is always mean-mugging Bella for something that's not even her fault, I appreciated each character and what they brought to the table. So I liked having them in the story, and I couldn't imagine the story any other way. I guess I really didn't care for Rosalie because I didn't like her motivations for being so against Bella. Supposedly she hates Bella because Bella is a human and Rosalie would give anything to be a human. But I find that reasoning so lame. I also don't really see that it's in line with Rosalie's personality, because in order to care so much about what someone else wants to do with their life, it means you have to be thinking of someone else. And I feel like Rosalie is a very vain and selfish character that, why does she care? It never made sense to me. And regardless if Bella is human or a vampire, it doesn't change the fact that Rosalie is a vampire and cannot change it. I can understand that Rosalie would be upset with this human disrupting her life and putting them in danger of having to be uprooted and move if something bad happened. That's the only motivation that makes sense to me. There's also this other thing that bugs Rosalie, and it has to do with her vanity and the fact that she was meant for Edward, but Edward didn't like her, and so that rubbed her the wrong way from the get-go. Despite how she feels about Edward, and even though Edward isn't her choice either, it still's always irked her that somebody didn't find her the most fascinating, most beautiful creature alive. I just don't really find that as a viable excuse either. Maybe it would make a little bit more sense if it was fresh. There's been a lot of years in between then, and she has Emmett, and it seems like it just would not make sense. But I don't think that's intended to be a primary motivation anyways. I think it was just a fleeting thought, and she was embarrassed that she had the thought. It's like trying not to think it, and she slipped, and she thought it, and Edward heard it, and I thought that was so funny. She gets pissed off and takes off, and I thought that was so funny. I don't think it's not meant to be serious though. My favorite character is Bella. I love Bella. I find that she's so relatable, especially at the time that I read this book. The fact that she's just really normal and does normal things, like she cooks, she eats, she takes a shower, she brushes her hair, she has to decide what clothes to wear, she goes to school, she studies, she's afraid to go to a dance because she can't dance. I love that. Most of even the human characters who are supposed to be like your normal characters in a fantasy aren't exactly normal in the way that Bella is. I know there's a lot of criticism around Bella that she's boring and has no personality, but what are you looking for really? She's me. She is an average person. We like to sit around and read books. We go to school, we go to work. That's what we do. We make dinner for our family. We watch TV. That's so basic, normal. And so I don't understand the criticism around Bella. Most of even the human characters in fantasy aren't exactly normal in the ways that Bella is. They either have an exceedingly tragic life, or they don't live in a relatable society, or they have to learn to fight. But Bella is 100% normal, middle class, teenage citizen with normal family dynamic. If I had to choose a favorite vampire, it's really so hard. It's more like I love all the vampires except Rosalie, for obvious reasons. She's not my favorite. And Jasper, just because he's kind of the background character and he doesn't have that big of a voice and he kind of blends in. So maybe there's a reason for that. But you just can't pick one over the other when it comes to the rest of the Cullens. Each one of them is incredibly special. Question number 3, who is your least favorite character and your favorite character after reading Midnight Sun? Before reading Midnight Sun, I think that it was apparent that Jessica was not a real friend. After reading Midnight Sun, we really get to see a lot of how terrible Jessica is of a friend. I really love that Bella didn't let her get to her. I love that she drove Jessica crazy with not allowing Jessica to bully her into giving her all the deets. However, again, I do like what her character brought to the table. I think that's really interesting because I can't recall really ever reading about fake friends this way. Usually the bitchy girlfriend character does not wear a friendly face. They're not as deceptive as Jessica is. Jessica is likely a very good representation of how real girls can be. But not just girls, but just people in general. They can be nice to your face, but secretly wishing your demise and competing with you. So I think that what her character is actually really important. I think it's really important to be aware of people like that out there for kids, because school and being a kid is hard enough. And you know, when you're not careful to protect yourself, those people can really bring you down. And so I think that that's something you only learn as you get older and have come across people like that. It's not really something, it's something that has to be learned by getting burned by people. So yeah, I think that her character is actually kind of important. So again, Rosalie, it seems, remains my least favorite character. My favorite character is a toss-up between Alice and Emmett. I think they're the best, most fun and dynamic characters. Plus they have the loudest voice. They're with Edward a lot more, and it would be cool to get to know some of the others more, like more of Esme and more of Carlisle. I love them so much, which in this book we do get more of them, but still Emmett and Alice, like they're like the coolest siblings. Emmett is just always still so happy and friendly and go lucky, and he's still like just brute force, like, oh, we can take them, no big deal. Like there's 7 of us and 3 of them, like we'll just take them down, no big deal. Meanwhile, the others are like, let's avoid a fight. And he's like, why? And I love that. I love it. Like he's just a problem solver. Let's get it done. Call it a day. He just does not let things get him down. I love how he thinks that Edward's just crazy about this human person, like making him crazy. He's just like, oh, Edward, you're so weird sometimes, you know? But he ends up liking Bella, and especially after she comes up with a plan in the Jeep. I think that that really earned her a lot of respect with Emmett. And also considering that this human person just isn't really afraid. And I think, again, because he's one of those people, he's not afraid. He ain't afraid. So I think that seeing Bella's bravery, and he was just like, that's a cool little human person. That's awesome. You know, and I think that like really convinced him to really see Bella differently. Because Bella's plan was brilliant. Well, Edward's just freaking the fuck out. Even Alice didn't see that other avenue. And for Bella to be like, hey, let's do it this way. And they're all like, wait a second, that actually makes sense. That's a brilliant plan. That was really cool. I love how Emmett plays Big Brother. He becomes very protective of Bella. He's like guarding her with everything, and I loved that so much. It took Edward by surprise because he's kind of like thinking like he did not expect that from his siblings. Bella is his responsibility. He brought this drama into their lives, and he didn't expect that his siblings would support him except for Alice. And the others were kind of like, you know, hey, whatever, being passive. But Emma was very much her protector as much as Edward was. And I think that really surprised Edward. And I loved that. I love that realization that they accept her. They love her too. And because Emmett took that stance despite his mate or his Rosalie's aversion to her, because he could have just as easily taken Rosalie's side and nobody would have blamed him because they are together forever. That's the way it works with the vampire relationships. And so I feel like for him to just, despite Rosalie's feelings, that was huge. Alice, again, she's so cool too. It's hard to pick Emmett over Alice or Alice over Emmett because I loved, especially in this book. If you haven't seen my review video, I talk about it there, but how Edward and Alice's gifts work together in this perfect synchronicity. It was so exciting to read and see how that worked, and it's hard to explain, like you have to experience it. It was so much fun. Of course, that's not her only asset, being the seer, but it just added so much to her character too that made her just really stand out as a really cool character. Okay, but if it had to come down to one, I think Emmett wins. Question number 4. What is your favorite new addition to the Twilight story? Again, I think it's how Alice and Edward use their gifts together. We already knew that they feed off of each other from the saga, but it was from Bella's perspective, and she could notice when Edward was listening to somebody's thoughts and they were like communicating. But here we actually get to see it in action, in play. That was so cool. Also, Jasper has a surprise as well. I love the addition to his gifts because he's a background character. He's senses emotions and can control emotions, but I love how she extended that. I'm gonna spoil it because I feel like if you're watching this, you've read the book. So I'm spoiling it right now. Jasper's gift. His gift is like centers around moods. I guess the way his gift works is if you're standing in a group, and you're scanning everyone, when your eyes cross him, you're kind of in the background. Not interesting, like your mood does not. And he uses it to block Bella because that was something. You would think that as soon as those other vampires walked into the clearing, it would have been apparent then that there was a human there. So how did they not know? Just because a little wind? I feel like this explains that so much better. So question number 5, what is your favorite Midnight Sun song from the playlist created by Stephanie Meyer? I actually forgot that Stephanie Meyer usually puts a playlist with each of her books, which is really cool. I don't know if her original playlists match up to the actual playlists that were for the movies. So Placebo specifically has a very special place in my heart. However, the song that's listed in the playlist is probably not the song I would have chose. Placebo as a band is very nostalgic for me. I feel like the story and this band kind of like go together in general, and so I like Placebo as a band to match with this book, but I probably would have chose some of his other songs like Bitter End, Running Up That Hill, or Every Me Every You. Those are like 3 of my favorite Placebo songs. And I think the first 2 that I mentioned actually fit so perfectly. Like just some of the things that says in the songs, like they fit perfectly. But in general, Placebo is just so nostalgic for me. And it just brings back like so many stuff and things. It carries all the feels that Twilight carries for me. And so I think that's my ultimate choice. However, the song they chose by Linkin Park, I think in general Linkin Park is so mood for this saga. I really like it. I would definitely pair Linkin Park with this. The song that they chose, With You, is yes, that's a good song. Also being that Midnight Sun particularly I feel like it matches with Edward's story so well. I also love that they added Ice Dance, which is the Edward Scissorhands score. I can see it. It's kind of different. It's really different. But there's a part of it that's very, I could see it in my mind in some of, a scene. So I guess that means we're down to 2 options, Linkin Park and Placebo. Even though I don't like that Placebo song per se, those bands work so well. Their tone, the way they sing, their style, I just feel like is so perfect. Question number 6, what would you have liked to see in Midnight Sun? This can be anything that you're still wondering about. I really liked Nicole's answer to this question. She totally addressed the elephant in the room, and I liked that. And I would like to second that. But for my own unique answer, there's a few things actually. I have a list. When Edward gives Bella the tour of his house, he takes her into Carlisle's office, and they have their history, pictures throughout history on their walls, and the big cross that was his dad's, Carlisle's dad's. So it's like 300-year-old super religious figure in their thing, which is kind of funny. But he gives her a shortened version of their history. But in this book, we get a lot more backstory, because in his mind, he's reliving these events, and he doesn't explain the whole story to Bella yet, but he's thinking it. And so I really, really liked that. But I guess I would like to know more about it. How does Carlisle actually remember so much about his human life? Because I thought that once they're turned into vampires, they really kind of start to disassociate from their human memories, and they're really muddled. And it seems like from the stories and the recalling that there was a lot that Carlisle was able to recall and pass down to Edward. Unless it would make sense, though, that maybe he had done some research on his own. Maybe to kind of put the pieces together. I don't know. I would really like to also see what the other rooms in the house look like. I want to see Alice's room and Rosalie's room. Alice, she's so much like into fashion. And then, oh, they have a drawing room too, because they like to work on different projects. Because Alice likes to design a lot of the clothes that they wear. There's so much more to that house. And then Carlisle and Esme's room, like what does their room look like? I mean, I guess they don't technically have to have a room, but Edward has a room, and I guess Alice and Jasper probably have a room, because it's their own like little private space with things that they care about. So I would like that to be explained. I would also like to know why they have all the fixings on the windows, because when they run to the Cullen house for safety, they close up all the windows with metal shutters. That's not normal unless you like live in where you get hurricanes. So they installed that for this exact scenario. So either this kind of thing has happened before, or Alice predicted something like this could happen and just thought, hey, this is a good idea to have just in case we need our privacy. Also, I have to add to this, also, is she supposed to write more books after this? Did she say she was gonna write more books? I didn't know if it was just a rumor though, or if she's really planning on it, because there were supposed to be more host books too, and there isn't more host books. If there's gonna be more books, I feel like why the hell not? She could just be the next Cassandra Clare and just write generations and generations of the Cullens, and I would be so happy, because they could live forever. So it's just the potential there. The potential is there, just to have like this amazing universe go on for infinity. But I was thinking as I was reading this book, I was like, okay, I wonder what Edward's perspective of the rest of the saga would be. That would be so cool. I would read them all. Also, for like ever, I have had this whole fan fiction in my head, and I want someone to write it for me, because I thought maybe one day I would sit down and actually write it, but I suck at writing fiction and fantasy stuff. I suck at writing in general. I used to write all the time, but it was very personal and journaly stuff. Definitely not fiction. I have this whole fan fiction in my head about like 100 years after Breaking Dawn. And basically everyone in Bella's life would be dead, and we could like kind of relive that last 100 years. I feel like, okay, what 100 years for Breaking Dawn would look like is that the Cullens are basically the new Volturi. And we can really mix some things up by taking maybe Jane from the Volturi and like making her cross sides and like why she would cross over. Because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like we could have something really, really interesting with that, because of what happened in Breaking Dawn, okay? They faced off with the Volturi and they won. And a lot of people are not happy with the things the Volturi do, but they just keep on running and they stay low to the ground. But like, when is enough enough? Maybe something's gonna happen with some other vampires and they go to the Cullens for help. And then we're gonna have a huge freaking war between Volturi and the Cullens, and maybe have new additions to their family and their little group because we ain't happy with the Volturi. I don't know. I just think it would be so, so cool to imagine a futuristic. Finally, the last question number 7. Which one did you like more, Twilight or Midnight Sun? I definitely have to go with Twilight. While this book had some things I did not know that I needed in my life, the first book is the best. not only does it just hold a special place in my heart, but I feel like if you did not read, it's hard to imagine it because we're so familiar with the story, but if you did not read the original saga, I feel like you could not just read this alone and know kind of what's going on. Also, something I mentioned in my review video, there was some things that I didn't care about. Just a little bit of the writing style and how repetitive Edward's inner monologue was. It got a little tedious, to be honest. I felt like the first book was definitely like smoother storytelling, probably a little bit more atmospheric as well. And also just seeing the world through Bella's eyes as her world opens up from mundane, which I've been reading so much Shadowhunters, mundane, as the world opens up from her very basic human, average human life to realizing that there's more, and her first, I mean, granted it's Edward's first love too, but it's so much different from Bella's perspective, and I feel like her experience with this love story is definitely going to be a lot different and more relatable than it is for Edward. So that concludes this book tag. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.